Yeah, like anything that we have that's not Coors Light. Can you do that?
I was just kidding, by the way. You don't have to
Ty
actually
doesn't want to
have
drink alone, so I have to pour a beverage.
beer. You notice the beer's half empty, right?
So this will be good then. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Bill, and welcome to episode 3 of the Angle of a Talk podcast. I was going to do like the mock reveal, and then I realized that his name is right above my head, and it's in the title. You guys know that it is Catstrator. I'm very excited to talk with Ty tonight. He's a great guy. He's got a super fun, entertaining stream. So without further delay, let's meet Catstrator.
How we doing? Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. Happy Friday. It's good to see y'all. Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. Happy Monday. It's good to see y'all. Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. Happy Friday. Good to see y'all. Hope you're doing well. You know, how many catchphrases can we fit into a single opening?
Localizer, clear dialysis running 30 left approach.
Clear out last 30 left approach, going 717. Oh, Jesus. This is the most fun I've had on VATSIM in a very long time, and we haven't even left the ground yet. Continue landing. Farewell, sweet friends. This has been probably one of the greatest nights of Twitch ever.
What's up, Ty?
Hi, Bill. This is the third attempt at doing this, by the way, guys.
This is the third attempt.
Number 3.
Thank you for joining us for episode 3 of the Angle of a Talk podcast.
Angle of a talk.
Angle of a Talk. It's
You know, I this past summer I had a chance to meet up with the guy who runs the Angle of Attack podcast. So that's two of them in a year.
Love
Very
it.
similar.
yeah, mine's like the Valley Girl pronunciation of it. Angle of a Talk, Dodd.
I can't say that. Continue.
Okay, well, first things first. You've answered this question numerous times, but I just want to get it out of the way at the top here. What the hell does Catstrator mean?
So, it's a dumb story. Like, most of the stories I'm going to tell today are pretty stupid. But my buddies and I I think we were 16, thereabouts. And we were, do you ever play Jedi Knight 2? You know have you ever heard of that game?
Uh-uh.
All right, so there's this game, Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. It came out like 2002, whatever. And it was a Star Wars game. And this game was notable because they had some really interesting lightsaber combat. Like you could do lightsaber duels and stuff like that. So my two of my buddies and I decided we are going to start a clan. And for whatever reason, we decided to call it the Evil Kittens Incorporated. Also a dumb name.
Evil Kittens Incorporated.
EKI.
Okay.
And so we all had to have cat names. Like it just had to be. And this was 2000. This is before cats on the internet was a thing, right? So we were trendsetters.
Yeah, you were memeing before memes.
Hell yeah, dude. So we came up with cat names. They came up with cat names. Like one of my friends was like Japanese for cat because he was a weeaboo at the time, and the other guy I can't remember what he was. And I'm like, I suck at names. Like this is gonna be tough, and ended up like coming up with a name Catstrator, and it just sort of stuck. So the whole cat thing came up. Do you remember? There's this old I guess we'll call it a meme. It's a cat, like a kitten, frolicking through a meadow, like a big green pasture meadow thing, right?
Yeah.
Remember that from years ago?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so my friend had one of those pictures as his desktop pattern, but the cat was jumping into a landmine. You know, that was ultimately what triggered us to say, okay, we need to do the cat stuff. I should probably turn off the stream over here too, so it's not quite so bright on my face. So that's what triggered us to say we need to have the cat stuff. So we all ended up with cat names, and for whatever reason, Catstrator stuck, and that's been the seriously uninteresting story behind the name, and I've had that name now for 18 years thereabouts.
And you've just used it for like social media and gamer stuff, and just kind
everything.
of just like wherever.
Yeah, sure. Played a lot of Quake, played a lot of Halo, played a lot of everything else. My gamer tag is Catstrator. It's just like it's been the name that I use everywhere else. Now, I normally wouldn't use that for something quite as serious as like Twitch and whatnot, but Twitch was a video game thing, and
Sure.
and I was like, all right, well, I'll just use Catstrator because that works. Yeah.
So did your
Dumb
friends call you Catstrator in person? Like
we
okay.
just call everybody by the first name. And it's funny. Whenever we get together with people, whenever you meet people like from the internet, and if you have a name, ultimately when you meet people from the internet, you're going to talk to each other by name, like by your alias. And so everybody calls me Cat. And I was used to that when it was on like Ventrilo and comms and whatnot. We were playing Call of Duty and all that stuff back in the day. But the first time somebody in person started calling me Cat, I got a little wigged out by that. I'm like, nah, man, you can call me Ty.
It's
So
weird.
it's
It's a weird thing to break when you know somebody by a name, and then it's like there's a disassociation with it. It's very strange.
Yeah, and it's like I got a group of buddies, probably 15 or 20 of us, and we play games together. We met through Flight Simulation and all sorts of other places, and it's the same sort of thing when you get to them. Like they call me Cat all the time, so much so that I don't even think about it. And then when it's in person, it's just like, oh, dude, that's real weird. Like, please, like you can't, because like Cat doesn't. Calling somebody Cat does not give you this image of a 6'4", 260-pound man. It's just like. No, I'm not a small dude, put it that way. Like, you don't look at me and you think, oh, that's Cat.
Yeah, a little cute little kitten.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's and so that's why I'm very. We talked about this before the podcast started, but I'm totally fine with people calling me by my first name because I find it to be a lot less weird. And hearing people say Catstrator is not really much better because again, it's a dumb name.
Well, I like it. I mean, it's unique, so it's
Right.
a differentiator for sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's actually sorry to interrupt. We'll do this a lot tonight, I'm sure. That's actually one of the reasons why I decided to keep it because I've gone back and forth. Like, okay, this is starting to become a little more serious. Like, do people want to do business with Catstrator? But you know what? I don't care because it's unique. It's memorable. It sort of ticks all the boxes behind what a name should be.
Yeah, and I think whatever weirdness there might be in the name kind of disappears because it's now become a like persona. It's become your persona, so there's really the weirdness is removed from it, and it's your Catstrator. Like it doesn't mean anything.
Yep.
It's you.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's I'm like it's a dumb name, and most people just find it funny. So I haven't had any reason to change it yet. Put it that way.
Don't change it. I love it. Okay, so before we go back in time and find out how you got here, tell me, kind of describe what here is. What are you doing, day to day, kind of brief overview of the Catstrator brand.
Oh, dear God. All right, so we're just going to stick with the brand then. So it's a weird position to be in, right? Because I never envisioned any of this ever making a dime, and it's strange because it's become a business, and it's weird to say that because it's like you have the community aspect. The whole thing is built on the shoulders of the community. Like the only reason why this is making any money, and I mentioned the money because the money is ultimately like it's the thing that's going to come up at some point. And it's not much money, trust me. Like it's we're not quitting our jobs and doing this full time anytime soon. But there's definitely an aspect of money that's there, and it's I've had to sort of change my thinking over the last few years around how seriously I take it. So right now I have the Friday night streams, and it's difficult. And I've tried it, and I also had the Friday night streams. I'm trying to add a Monday night stream to it, right? The problem is that for that 4-hour Friday night stream that you see, there's usually an hour to an hour and a half of prep on the front end of that, just getting everything ready. And then there's another hour to an hour and a half of work on the back end of that, getting the YouTube VOD up, going over statistics, replying to emails, replying to comments. And there's another, usually hour or 2 hours during the week where that sort of stuff continues to happen. Not to mention the time that we spend on Discord talking to people. So, Catstrator as a thing, I very much approach at this point in sort of a business fashion. And I think that I imagine people are probably going to be surprised to hear that, because that's maybe not the kind of thing that you want to hear. But the fact of the matter is like my wife and I rely on the income that's coming through to sort of help to pay for our day-to-day expenses and whatnot. So now that being said, like for me, I still try to look at it as the community aspect of it, right? And I try to be as sort of as friendly and forthcoming. Like I want to help people, I want to entertain people, I want to make people laugh. I want to have a good time doing this. Just because it's become sort of a pseudo job doesn't mean that it has to be dull and lame and boring and all that other stuff.
Yeah, it's
So,
definitely
yeah,
not. It's definitely not boring.
Right. It's different, right? I try to,
Yeah.
I try to be different. I try to be interesting. I'm a firm believer that you need to go back and watch your own. Like if you're doing something like this, and if you're doing something and you want people to take you seriously, you want to take it seriously, you have to go back and watch your own stuff. And I frequently do. Like I go back, and I don't watch everything now, but especially when I was starting off, I'd go back and I would have in the background one of my streams up, and I'd feel like a big idiot sitting there listening to the stream. I'm like, hey, what are you watching? Myself. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, it's back now.
Okay.
Yeah.
The sort of the idea there is that if I can't watch myself and I can't be entertained by myself, then why the hell is anybody else going to watch me? And I think that that's the thing that sort of sets. I think it's the sort of thing that sets what I'm doing apart from what some other people are doing, because there's definitely guys that are out there, and I'm not even talking flight sim. I'm talking just Twitch and YouTube and all that stuff in general, that are like, they do the thing and say, okay, it's done, it's out of here, I'm never going to touch that again. So that sort of falls back into the sort of viewing this as Catstrator as being a sort of more of a business entity thing for me.
So obviously the Twitch streams take up the majority of your time. How much focus do you put on the YouTube channel and Discord? Like where do you kind of divide your attention?
So YouTube is, I thought at one point YouTube was going to be the big thing for me. And then the Twitch partnership happened, and it turns out that Twitch is kind of, for what I'm doing and what I'm interested in, Twitch is the better platform. I would much rather spend 5-6 hours producing a live stream that's 4 hours long than spend 8 to 10 hours producing a edited video that's 45 minutes long. So YouTube exists as a way for me to put the stream out there, for people to be able to watch that, because I think a lot of people look at it like your podcast now. People come to it, they watch the VOD after the fact because I talk about life experiences, I talk about this and that, and we talk about the industry, we talk about what's going on. Like it's a podcast for a lot of people. So I push that out there, and I make sure that I treat all that with enough respect that like I don't want to push it aside, sort of thing. But as far as like doing the big edited content and this and that, like it's no longer become a focus. The Discord thing, on the other hand, I credit a lot of channel growth and a lot of people coming into the community with Discord directly. I take a very hands-off approach to a lot of things. I don't believe in over moderating stuff. Like I don't believe in having 1 million channels on your Discord server. Like make sure you post the X-Planes channel and go talk about shooting games in the shooting game. Like that's just not me.
Yeah.
No offense to the guys that do that. Like that works for them. But like you have a channel where you talk, you have a channel where you spam your pictures, and maybe 1 or 2 other channels there. But there's no reason to fragment any more than that. So. I try to take a very hands-off approach to moderation. I'm like, the rule is don't be an idiot. So that being said, I spend a lot of time in there talking to people, trying to answer questions, trying to keep discussion going. Like if you look over in the Discord channel, it's pretty much always moving, no matter what time of day it is. And I think I credit that a lot with people sort of coming in and feeling like they're part of a thing. So Discord, if you had to sort of pick your priorities, you've got Twitch obviously is the number 1, Discord is number 2, and YouTube is sort of down here number 3 somewhere.
Okay.
Just based on how I sort of approach everything.
Yeah, and you do that. I mean, you produce videos for your day job on YouTube.
Yeah, so this is where it gets kind of fun. So a couple of years ago, I had an opportunity come up where I went from being an account manager. I was corporate America working, pharmaceutical companies, this and that, just kind of making sure everybody was happy.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a job posting for a technical marketing engineer. I'm like, what the hell does that even mean?
Yeah, what
And
what does that?
right? Like, you're a marketing guy.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever.
Never heard of that.
I'm looking at the job requirements, or I'm looking at the requirements for this thing, and they're looking for things like they want heavy relational database skills. They want data integration stuff. Like, I can sit here and give you a whole bunch of computer buzzwords that most people are gonna be like, oh, what the hell does that mean?
Oh, I am eyeballs deep into relational databases.
Well, we should have a talk. We should have a talk sometime then, because that's been my career. And then they were looking for somebody with video production experience, and they specifically called out video games like Twitch. Like, Twitch was in the damn job description as the thing that they're like, we're looking for experience doing video stuff, and we don't care how sort of out there it is. And so I sat on it for a while. Like, I'm like, whatever. Like, I saw the role. I'm like, that's cool. I'm happy with my job. I like what I'm doing. I'm challenged every single day. And it's one of those, like, you're happy with your job until you're not happy with your job. And I had a couple of days where I was like, and that posting was there for 3 months.
Oh,
and
wow.
it was there actually a lot longer, but I saw that posting
Yeah.
for 3 months. So I finally put my resume and all that in, and the long and short of it is I got a job. So what I do with my day job, I work for a software development company, and I make their training and marketing videos, mostly training videos.
Mainly internal.
No, it's external. So we sell a
training. Okay.
Yeah. So we sell a software product to developers, and this material is aimed at telling those developers how to use the software. At the same time, like, there's a slight marketing twist to that, where it's like, all right, well, our software does things that are very complicated. How about if we target some keywords and we say, okay, here's how you do this very specific thing that we've decided to make a video on within our application. And lo and behold, if you go search for, certain keywords on YouTube and Google, my video comes up first. And that's very much intentional. So that's my day job, basically making videos for the man. I also do YouTube videos for a couple of clients. Most notably, you probably know Cirrus Max. I'm essentially his channel manager. So I edit all his videos and all that good stuff too.
Okay, yeah. So I've heard you talk about that in the Discord and on your stream too, where you've said, like, we're working on a video, and I was always curious what the relationship was there in terms of you and his content.
Yeah, so we started talking a couple years ago, because he's got the whole Vision Jet thing, and so we started talking a couple years ago when the Vision Jet was starting to become a thing, and he was like, I want to do videos, like, I want to be the person for this, and we decided to use the SR-22, the old Cirrus, as sort of a springboard to try some ideas. Let's try some stuff. Let's see what's interesting. Let's see what sticks. Let's see what we like. Let's see what our friends like, and kind of go from there. So we made a bunch of videos with that, and then eventually pivoted into doing videos for the Vision Jet stuff, and pivoting into some really exciting stuff that's coming up in the next probably like 3 to 6 months that I can't talk about. But yeah, I mean, it's cool. Like, shh, don't tell anybody. It's an interesting relationship. So he does the flying, he gets me the video, and I go through and I cut together. We try to make a story and try to make something interesting out of it. And
cool.
Yeah, that's actually been super fun. Like, that's one of the main reasons why I stopped doing edited videos over on YouTube for myself. Number one, because it's my day job, and number two, because I'm doing it for him too.
So did you start?
I just don't have the time.
The current YouTube day job that came after the Twitch and your personal content.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I got the day job as a direct result of the channel and everything else that we built through YouTube and Twitch.
Got it.
Which was and it's crazy. I started that job 2 years ago, and I started that job I got the job offer the same week I got the partnership offer with Twitch.
Oh, did you really? Wow.
Which like partnership today is different than partnership 2 years ago, but it's like it's no less of an accomplishment, that's for sure. And I got the two offers the same week, and I was just like, oh. But the job offer for my day job was largely as a result of all the work I had done on the side, being able to say, okay, I can make videos, I can explain things, and here's some examples of me doing that.
That's really cool. That's really awesome. Okay, so that's Ty. So you've got day job producing videos for a software company. You've got a 1 to 2 times per week Twitch stream. You've got YouTube content going up on your own channel. You're producing content for a couple other channels. Okay, so going back, like rewinding as far back as relevant, where do you feel like the Catstrator, I don't want to call it a brand, but you now, what you're doing now, where did that start? Was it the content creation side? Was it the aviation side?
This is a really complicated question. It doesn't seem that way, but it is. So I see what you're asking, and as you see what I'm doing today, I would say started about 3.5, maybe 4 years ago. So going all the way back, like I've been on Twitch, I think since 2011, I want to say.
Okay, wow.
2011, 2012, like right around the time Twitch became Twitch.
Yeah. And
I got there through StarCraft 2. I got into StarCraft 2 esports, watching it, and just kind of was engrossed with it. Like I was watching tournaments every weekend. I was watching MLG. My happy ass hopped in my car, went down to Providence, Rhode Island for a weekend to, with like 20,000 other people, or not 20,000, maybe it was, I don't know, with a whole bunch of other people.
A lot of people.
To watch a tournament. And it was awesome. I loved it. It was great. And I was streaming StarCraft back in the day too. And it was around this time, also probably 2012-ish, that I decided I just for whatever reason I decided I wanted to do a flight simulator. I played around with flight simulators when I was a kid. Like A10 Cuba is the one I always talk about. That was for the Mac. Like that was the flight simulator I had as a kid. If you go back and you look up videos and whatnot of that, it's actually a pretty like realistic, well done study level simulation.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just, for whatever reason, I'm like, I'm gonna fire up a flight simulator. So I did what everybody does, and I pirated a copy of FSX because you couldn't buy it anywhere. So I did that, and I messed around with it for a little bit, and I was like, this is kind of cool. And I started buying payware and this and that. Well, I guess I hadn't bought the payware yet, so I didn't pirate the payware, by the way. That I will hand to whatever deity you believe in. Like, I pirate FSX, but only because I couldn't buy it anywhere. So I started getting into it, and it was around the same time I was streaming some StarCraft 2 stuff, and I thought, you know what? What if I streamed Flight Simulator?
So and what year was this? 2012?
Probably 2013 would be my guess.
Yeah.
Maybe 2013. I'm trying to think what company I worked for, because that's usually how I put it all together. 13, 14. It was around. It was actually before. You ever play Smite?
No.
Okay. So if anybody knows Smite, it was around the time that Smite actually like released. But yeah, so it was probably 13, 14 would be my guess. So I said, all right, I want to try streaming this. And so I streamed it, and of course nobody watched. Nobody ever watched, but there was nobody doing flight sim stuff either. Like at the time, Bellins had like 30 people watching him. Okay, so like this was like when I say you got to get lucky and you got to time it right. This is what I mean when you got to get lucky and you got to get the timing right. There was nobody doing this stuff, so I was having fun with it. Like, and eventually we had a couple guys that would come in and they did some streams, and I did some streams, and I get hammered and fly planes and whatever. Like, there's actually a clip on my channel. Oh, you know what? That's how I can tell. Yeah, exactly. There's a clip on my channel. If you go all the way back to the beginning of the videos on Twitch, you'll find this like video of me crashing a 747 trying to take off, and that was a bad moment for me. But I left it up there just for posterity's sake because it's so crazy that's how I was back then. So.
Now, when you were streaming, was it StarCraft that you were streaming?
Yeah, StarCraft 2.
So when you were streaming StarCraft 2, how many people were watching those streams? Like, how many followers did you have? Like, what was the...
Like a couple of my friends,
Yeah.
like nobody.
Yeah.
One of my buddies, Aaron, who I played StarCraft with occasionally, would come in and watch, but nobody was watching. Like, I posted over on Facebook. My friends were like, "Yeah, I came to your channel. None of it made any sense." Because like if you've ever gotten into StarCraft before, like it doesn't make any sense unless you like are into StarCraft. Yeah. So I started streaming it. And it was a thing. And I remember I encountered Frugal Pete for the first time through that. And eventually, like, we started, eventually we talked. I won't, like, I consider Frugal Pete to be a friend. But we talked, and eventually I talked to Balance. Eventually, just like you start having, like, these connections start to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course the drama all starts to happen. I'm like, whoa, man, I don't want any part of that. And there's been some drama over the years. But I would say the Catstrator thing became a thing probably 2015. 2015, yeah, it was the year I got married. Oh, it's been 5 years. Yeah, it's the year I got married. So I started breaking like 25, 30 people concurrent, which was a huge accomplishment at the time. And I started getting some plugs from like Frugal and whatnot. And around that time, I discovered Squirrel, and I discovered the Rooster Teeth podcast, and I discovered the Giant Bomb podcast, and a few of these other things. So, like, I look at my channel, and it's like an amalgamation of Frugal was a big early influence. I think I stole some stuff from him, like the whole "Welcome aboard, good to see you" thing. I'm pretty sure he did that first, and then I just sort of stole it. I would say, as far as like streamers go, Squirrel is probably the one person that you sort of look up to the most if you're doing this stuff, because like, how has he built that empire that he's built around Eurotruck, and how can I do that for Flight Sim, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the Rooster Teeth podcast I was listening to at the time, and their mantra was, we don't cover things we don't like, right? We talk positive about things. We don't talk negative about things, and that's one. And I remember I was driving back from Indiana, which is a long trip, by the way. And I remember they were talking about this, and I sort of had this like light bulb moment, like, huh. You know what? People don't want to listen to me complain. They want to listen to me speak happy thoughts and talk about good things and say, this is why this thing is awesome, and this is why this thing is awesome, and go from there. And then like Giant Bomb, if you've never listened to Giant Bombcast, like, those guys just have fun. Like, they're just kind of themselves. They talk, they talk shop, they talk nonsense. They're not afraid to say, well, today maybe we'll talk about video games, because it's a video game podcast, but it's a video game podcast where they very seldom talk about video games. One of those kind of things. And so I sort of took influence from a lot of those different sources and said, okay, how, like, I like this, like, let's make this the thing. So, and then eventually I sort of took the swearing out of the thing too, because I swore a lot. So like, as you look at what it is today, today, like, I don't cover products I don't like. I don't talk about products I don't like. There's developers out there that I'm like, I'm not really big on their products, and it's just better to not talk about it. Like, because for everything that I hate, there's going to be some person out there that loves it. I like to use SSG as an example. There's a lot of people that rag on the SSG Embraers and the SSG 747s. I like those planes. I think they're totally fine. And that's a good example of, like, if somebody's out there crapping on those airplanes, they've never flown them, or they didn't really give them a chance. Like, I'm like, what do you know, man? Like, they're not that bad. Like, don't be so hard on them. So, like, we're always positive. We're trying to, cover things in the best light possible, and try to just be as informed and as educated about the products that we're covering. that answer the question?
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic. No, I mean it's important. I mean you can learn a lot about somebody by what they like, who they're influenced by, and
exactly.
And I didn't even, which is why I love doing this, because it didn't occur to me, when welcome aboard, cheers. Like it's such a natural thing. But whenever you're making content, it's unavoidable to hear something that you like, and somehow, even if it's not a conscious decision, like I am going to use that as my intro, where you just kind of, you react to what you like, and it just kind of takes that shape.
Did you see the panel last year?
I did, yes.
The little streamer panel. So there's a thing you just reminded me of this. There's a thing I talked about at the very end of it, and
the Flight Sim Expo panel at
Yes, the Flight Sim Expo panel. We had myself, we had Aerosyn Gaming, Durka, Jeff Fabiano, Squirrel, Chewy was on there.
Yeah,
I think that was the panel.
Yeah, that was the panel.
So there's a little thing I talked about at the end, and around the time that I was doing this, starting to get into this stuff, I was also reading How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is back here somewhere on my coffee table. And one of the chapters in that book covers the fact that people like to hear their own name, and that's where the whole 5 to 10 minute intro where we say everybody's name and we say hello to everybody comes from. I'm like, you know what? I wonder what happens if I sit here and individually greet every person coming in here, which wasn't a big deal when it was 20 people. As we've gotten a little bigger, it's taken a little bit longer, but I still think that's a crucial part of what I'm doing, to try to say hello personally to as many people as possible, because number one, it helps me make a connection with them. It helps me remember them. Like there's guys that I see and I'm like, I haven't seen you for a while, because I say your name every single week. And on the other side of that, it makes the person watching feel like they're part of this community. I'm like, I'm welcoming you with open arms. Like, come in, be part of this community, be a member. Come say hello. I don't care if you follow. I don't care if you subscribe. All I want you to do is come and say hello. That's it. You say hello, I'll try to say hello back to you.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge benefit to Twitch, I think, in just creating communities.
Right.
I mean, YouTube, you don't get that in YouTube. You get some creators that if you have someone reply to a comment, that's cool. You feel like, they're moderating the comments and it's cool. But to have the person's face make noise out of their mouth and it's your name, like that is freaking cool.
I mean, that's the basis of Twitch, though. Like, if you go watch any streamer, that is the core of what makes Twitch work.
Absolutely.
Everybody wants to be recognized. Everybody wants to be noticed. And as a bonus, we get some entertainment. And hey, what's it matter if I throw this guy a $5? Like that's the core of what Twitch is.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, that's awesome. So
I like surprising people like that. I wanted to make sure we talked about that. I was thinking about this today. I'm like, one of the things I want to talk about is like influence, because nobody talks about who influences them.
Yeah, for sure. And it's again, like I said, it's probably a subconscious thing. Like we just kind of watch what we like. I mean, no one's taking in content throughout the day that they don't like.
Right.
Unless it's your job and you have to, and
I sometimes do that because I want to say what's not good about this. But
well, sure, there's a research element to it, but yeah, willingly people are going to just naturally gravitate towards what they like, and it kind of shapes who they are. And it's really cool to hear you recognize that, and to be able to pull specific things that you've grabbed from these other content creators. It's fantastic. Okay, airplanes.
This is fun.
This is really fun. All right, so where did aviation start with you?
I want to be that person that sits here and says, I sat in my crib and watched the airplanes and dreamed of being a pilot. But the reality is, I grew up dirt freaking poor. We had nothing to our name. So I looked at the sky and I said, there's a thing that I'll never touch. And never really thought too much about it. So like aviation was always one of these things that was just so far out of reach that I never even thought that it was a possibility of being a thing that I could do. And I can't stress that fact enough. This was not a part of my life I got into flight simulation first. You'll notice we talked earlier about FSX and all that stuff. The reason why I gravitated towards the flight sims, this is kind of stepping back a little bit, and it's important to the story, I promise, is because I've made my career in the tech industry, and I had a passion for technology in high school and college. Like, I love tinkering with things. I love programming. I love it when my screen locks because I don't hit my mouse. I love technology. I loved everything that there was to do about computers, and I wanted to know more. And then this little thing happens where you graduate from college and you make that your job. And suddenly it's like for 40 hours a week, I am just fixing other people's problems. And I eventually just hated it. I got to the point where I hated technology. And I'm kind of still there today. Like I have an iPhone because I want my phone to just work, right? I don't want to I understand that Android's more powerful and you can do this, I don't care. I want to push the button and have it do the thing and not have to ever fuss about it. Everything that I do is in a way that it just works for the most part. So what happened is I got into flight simulation, and I sort of started getting deeper into it. Where first it's learning the sim, and then it's buying the Majestic Q400 and diving into that thing, and then it's what's this VAT sim thing, and then it's what's this Pilot Edge thing, and it's just sort of on and on and on. And how do I teach people about this stuff? Just kind of on and on from there. And what happened is it scratched the exact same itch that I had when I was a teenager with technology. Like, it's the same thing. You're using the same part of your brain, your flying brain, it turns out, is the same as I'm going to sit down and write code all day. Because it's very procedural. It's very sort of precise. It's in some ways very mathematical. Okay, so I got into flight simulation and all the things around virtual aviation. And then at some point, I started becoming interested in actual aviation. My very first time ever flying in a prop plane, in a GA plane, was 2015. My best man for my wedding got me a discovery flight from the local airport. So May of 2015 was my very first time ever jumping into an airplane.
And that was because of the flight sim stuff that he knew you might be interested in that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he knew that because of the flight sim stuff. Like, he might like this stuff. I don't know.
Cool.
And again, even back then, I was like, I can't afford to do this, man. Like, it's like $12,000 for me to get my license, another $700-800 a month to fly. Like, forget it. I got other. Like, I'm trying to buy a house. I'm trying to get married. I'm trying to do all this stuff. I just don't have. I don't have the finances for it. And so he did that, and I thought, like, okay, well, that was fun, but I'll probably never do that again. And again, aviation is one of those things that just sort of seemed out of reach. And then this Twitch thing sort of happened, and this Twitch thing was like, all right, well, maybe I can make this work now, and maybe I can make this work turned into, hey, I have my pilot's license like 6 months later, and it kind of goes from there. So, like, I've only been into aviation and into airplanes for 4 years, we'll say. We'll call it 5 years. We'll call about 5 years. And I'm 34 years old, so that's a lot of time to not care about airplanes, right?
So how much do you care about it now? I mean, are you just part of that aviation geek community? I mean, are you looking up at the plane? Do you got the Flight Radar 24 on? Do you got live ATC on your phone? All that stuff.
I live under one of the main approaches for Boston Airport. I'll sit out there with a beer and a cigar and Flight Radar 24 and be like, all right, let's go. Let's watch them come in tonight. Like, my friends give me crap about it. I'm like, hey, that thing. Do you know what that airplane is? No, Ty, we don't care. What kind of airplane is that? That's a Boeing 787. You want to know how I know it's a Boeing 787? Because, number one, the beacon goes on, off. On, off. There's no ramp up to it. It's just on, off because it's an LED. And number two, when it's coming in, it smiles in the air. Go look at a picture. Go look at a video sometime of a Boeing 787 as it's coming in. It smiles because the wings have such a huge curve to them. And they're like, okay. And I look it up. I'm like, see, look, it is. And they're like, Yeah, okay, that's fantastic.
It's so hard for people that just don't care. Because
Right.
like our excitement level is off the chart. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know people that are more excited about anything than aviation people are about airplanes.
Oh yeah, I know, man.
And it's so
Well, and
funny.
that's so. This is where it's funny. Like, I've had the opportunity to several times hang out with Jeff Fabiano, and I don't like name dropping people, but I say his name specifically because he has got to be the biggest airplane nerd I've ever met in my life. Like, I've been to Sun and Fun with him a couple of times, and he'll sit there and be like, "That's the Messerschmitt's blah blah blah. It's got 4 engines on it and 5 radials, and it flew in these missions and this and that, and it drops these bombs and it goes this fast." I'm like, "How the hell do you know that?" Like, I don't get into airplanes for the history of them. I get into airplanes because, hey, that's a cool way to go someplace, and maybe I can go there a little faster. So I don't care about the airplane part of aviation. I care about the actual like travel portion of aviation.
Interesting.
Which I think shows in the stream where I don't care what I fly.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean, and you're very specific about where you're going too.
Yeah.
As a result.
Oh
of
yeah,
that.
every flight is generally based upon what's the most interesting route that I can come up with today.
Yeah. So, do you remember like the moment that you decided that you wanted to go for your PPL? Like what the feeling of I can do this and want to do this?
Yeah. I was having a pretty rough winter. Way back in time in another life, we had a house fire as a kid, and it sort of has done some very nasty things to my psyche over the years. But several years ago, there was a house fire right up behind us, and it was the house right behind me, and it sort of triggered these thoughts and feelings that were very unpleasant. And it happened in the middle of, I think it was like the middle of February that this happened. And so I was in a bit of a rut, and eventually sort of pulled myself out of that. But as I was pulling myself out of that, that's when I started. I think what pulled me out of that rut was the drive to do something new, to like finally like let's go achieve this goal and see what happens. And it was definitely like aviation that sort of yanked me out of that hole. And I said, all right, well, I'm gonna go past my medical, and then I'm gonna fly once a month, and we're gonna kind of figure out how to make this happen. So yeah, I think that was sort of the moment, and that was about 2 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. So and it took you said 6 months to get your license?
I started in April. A little more than 6 months. I started in April. I finished in September.
Okay.
So that's like 5 or 6 months. We'll call it 6 months.
And how did you get the license? Was it a school? Was it a club? Which route did you take?
Well, both actually. So
okay.
I went to a school up in Lawrence, Massachusetts, Eagle East. If you guys are in Massachusetts and want good instruction, go talk to Tim Campbell. He's fantastic. I went up there, and I went up there because I had found a flying club up there. So I started flying Tim's planes, and eventually, as I was doing that, I was working on joining this flying club that had a Cherokee 180, just beat up old 1966. Like, this thing was shot to hell, but it flew, and it flew really well. And so I joined that club, flew their plane for like next to nothing compared to what I was renting for, and then used him as my instructor. So it was all part 61, I think. Just all it wasn't a 141 school, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you went to the school, you got instruction from this guy, and then you basically poached him from there to do private instruction in a rental.
Yep.
Plane. Okay.
Yeah, and it was the guy that owned the flight school, and like and the reason why I chose him, I did a discovery flight with him, and I was talking with him, and I was, we're having an interview here, right? So I'm interviewing him, and he's like, and I said, hey man, like I'm thinking of joining this flying club. Like, is that going to be a problem for you as an instructor? He's like, dude, I don't care. I just want to go fly airplanes. That's all he said. And then this is like a 55, 60-year-old dude. Like this, all he wanted to do was be up in the sky. And I was like, all right, man, you are my man.
That's
like
cool.
you and I got a rapport, and we're gonna make this work. So yeah, he charges a bit more per hour because he has to carry insurance and whatnot, but
Yeah. Oh, like if
still goes to
you
his
if you
bottom
take him
line.
in the club plane, he charges a little bit more. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's like $10, $15 more an hour or whatever.
Yeah, that's not too bad. And did you do all of your training in that Cherokee?
No. I did 15 hours in a 172.
Okay.
I did like 8 hours in a Cherokee 140, and then I did the rest of the hours I think in the 180. So yeah, I was pretty like scattered.
Okay.
Yeah, I was pretty scattered. Like I was determined to fly, and if my plane wasn't available, I was going to rent a plane. I was going to fly that airplane. So like I did a couple of I did my dual cross countries in their Cherokee 140, the school's Cherokee 140.
Okay. And that's the video that I saw. The one your solo cross country.
No, that was in the Hawk 1. That was in the club's plane.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Now out of the
So I don't. Go ahead.
Oh, the Cherokee 172. What's your preference?
I loved the 180.
Yeah.
Like it's essentially an Archer.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that plane so much. Those big ass Hershey bar wings, like that was you look out there, you're like, I'm flying an airplane, because you see those two wings on either side of you. Like I'm definitely flying an airplane right now. It had 1,150 pounds useful load and 50 gallons in the tanks. I don't know how much you've gotten into weight and balance stuff, but that is really impressive.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That is almost 3 of me that you can put in that airplane, full tanks, and still take off.
Yeah, that's a lot. I think the Archer is like 800 something.
The Archer's a little less. I think they're usually like 900 or whatever, because the Warriors are running like 800-ish.
Okay.
Typically, it depends on what equipment you got and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that 180 was awesome. I missed that plane. I left the club because it wasn't a very good IFR platform. And I had an opportunity to join a club that was closer to home that had much better equipped airplanes.
What did you do your check ride in?
I did it in the 180.
In 180. How was that?
Yeah.
What was that like? Because you went from, you did this pretty quick, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, did you have time to kind of realize the weight of what you were doing, or was it so quick that it was just kind of like you just did it?
It was long enough that I kind of knew what was happening. I knew what was going down. It's funny, like my PPL was just check boxes. Like we literally were, what's the minimum number of hours we need to do to complete this? Okay, we're done with that. Let's move over. Okay, we're done with that. Like it was literally just check boxes to get to I think I ended up with 44 hours. And I took my PPL only because I went screwing around a few times solo because I could.
Yeah.
Yeah. So taking the check ride, I was, oh man, we had been delayed almost a week and a half. There was this Hurricane Carlos, and Carlos sat off the coast of Massachusetts for a week, just sitting there. Like,
dude, come on, Carlos.
Sometime, I know, right? Like, Carlos, you're really ruining my mojo here, buddy. So if you go look up Hurricane Carlos, you'll see what I'm talking about. It just sat there. And so as it sat there, we didn't have really any weather, right? But we had clouds and we had fog, like crazy fog. So let me show you. I'm going to send you a picture, and you're welcome to show this if you'd like to.
Okay, yeah, we'll toss it up for sure.
Give me just a moment here. Because this is another one of those where it's like, this is important to the story. It's check ride day.
Was it windy?
Nah, it was deadly calm, man. Yeah, it was super calm. Oh yeah. Okay, here you go. So I show up on check ride day, and this is what I'm greeted with. I'm sitting over here in a PM.
I might have to. I will react to it as if I will pull it up so everyone will see it. Wow! No way!
Wow, holy crap!
Look at that picture.
So this is what I had. This is what I had greeted me too. Did you see it at all?
No. I'll have to. I can actually pull it up. I can pull it up on my phone now that I think about it. Yeah, if I minimize you, then it fully minimizes you. Oh yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, following like all the aviation memes and stuff, I bet you were like texting the DP going, so are we on for today?
Okay. So here's the thing. My check ride was scheduled for 9 a.m., right? This was, I think, 7 or 7:30 in the morning.
It'll burn off.
Is there? Well, that was the thing. We're sitting there like, I think it's going to burn off.
Yes.
And I'm talking to my instructor, and my instructor's like,
it's totally going to burn off.
It's going to burn off eventually. Like the tap says it'll burn off. It'll burn off at some point. Just stick around and wait.
It's totally going to burn off.
I stuck around and wait. I'm texting the DPE. And he's like, and I'm like, should we cancel? And he says, nah, it'll burn off. Just wait a little bit. We'll see how it pans out. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, he's got to be screwing with me. This is part of the test. He's going to say, is he going to cancel the flight because of the fog? Eventually, we had to cancel the flight because of the fog, because it did burn off. It didn't burn off until much later in the morning. Now, the other thing about this is that the night before, I was up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, hanging out with some friends, and I remembered this moment distinctly where I went into the bar, and it was nice out, and I came out of the bar an hour later, and it was completely foggy. Like it went from being clear to this in like no time. And I'm thinking about this. I'm like, that happened last night. What do you think the odds are of that happening again tonight? So maybe I don't want to be stuck after sunset up in the air with that fog rolling in as quickly as it did. So we canceled it. We ended up rescheduling it the next week, and he had to move some stuff around because I was slated to do some trade shows. So I was going to go to Microsoft Ignite for a week down in Orlando, and then be home for like 3 days, and then fly to San Francisco to go to Oracle World. So I'm like, dude, like if I don't get it done this week, it's going to be 3 weeks before we can do this. So we ended up scheduling it on a morning. He's like, I was going to do it on a Thursday morning, and he sends me a text on Tuesday saying, hey, can you move to Saturday morning? And I'm like, well, my wife and I were going to New York that Saturday afternoon for the evening, just to kind of hang out before I was gone for 2 weeks. I can do it. And by the way, this is when the light bulb goes on. I can do it if we can meet up at 7 a.m. And he says, you can be here at 7? I'm like, I can be there at 7. Okay, we'll do it at 7. So I show up at the airport, and the morning of my check ride, and the conditions are marginal VFR, 2,200 foot ceilings, and I'm like, crap. By the way, the Thursday that we were supposed to do it, Thursday was hosed. Carlos was still around, and these were the conditions. These were the conditions for a week, a week and a half. Like it was still bad Thursday. It wouldn't have happened. So I show up at the morning of the check ride. It's 2,200 overcast, and I'm like, you think it'll burn off? Like the TAF says it's going to burn off. It's going to go away at some point, but I have a very hard deadline. Like I need to be on the road by 1 o'clock so I can head down to New York, and we can get our reservation. So in perspective, New York is a 3-hour drive from us, where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, and so I start calling all the local AWAS stations. A bunch of the airports. I'm like, okay, so where's the edge of this at? Like, what happens? And I'm looking off in the distance, and I can see off in the distance, must have been no more than like 10 or 15 miles. I'm like, those are clear skies. The problem was that my restriction on my student, because you should have this too, for your solo endorsement, said you will fly in no more than you will leave the pattern unless you will not leave the pattern unless there's more than 3,000 feet on the ceilings. My 2,200 is a lot lower than 3,000. If I wait for my instructor to come in, I'm not going to make this check ride. It's clear skies 10 miles off to the north. I'm going. So I just left. I blasted up 1,800 feet all the way up to almost all the way to the airport, because I ended up just hugging the coast and staying underneath that overcast layer. Skirted around a Class Delta airspace that was in the way, and made it up there.
And is your plane 458?
No. So
Okay.
9323 Juliet was the plane we were flying.
Okay, not the one in the foreground here.
Not the one in the foreground. No. Definitely, that plane was way nicer.
I was gonna say that looks pretty. It looks pretty badass. That actually might be. Oh, no, that is a Cherokee, I think. Right? Yeah.
It's at least it's some manner of Cherokee.
Yeah.
Here you go. Well, you can't look at it, but
Oh yeah, I got it now on my phone.
oh, you got it on your phone. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's 9323 Juliet.
Okay. Cool.
The old candy bar style. We got the stylish, the Dunkin' Donuts stylish shot here going.
Yeah. So that's a great shot.
So I skirted up there, and the check ride itself, like for all of the stress and everything else that went into the check ride was a non-event. Like,
cool.
As it turns out, I way over prepared for it. I blasted the oral exam like it was nothing. I did amazingly well in the flying. Like, there was the only black mark I really had on my flying was that I almost didn't make my landing point for the engine out. I didn't manage energy properly coming in. Mm-hmm. And he reaches down and grabs my flap handle and says, "Here, give yourself some more lift, buddy. You'll be okay." And I was like, "Oh yeah, right." So the crux of the whole story, so I got the PPL. I was like, "Yeah, I'm all excited, this and that." The whole thing was that now, instead of driving down to New York City, I call my wife. I'm like, "Hey, grab your bag, go to the airport, let's go." So we flew down to White Plains.
Yes, dude.
Yeah, the same day. I told my instructor that. He's like, "Dude, you got kahunas."
Dude, well done. I'm current.
Yeah,
I got the license. Let's do it.
Yep.
Oh, dude, that is
get out of here.
so awesome. You knew that like too, didn't you? You planned on.
Oh yeah. That was planned. That was my wife and I planned that too. And I was like, and I told her, I'm like, if it doesn't happen, like if I don't get my license, if I don't either pass or I just don't take the test, like we're driving. But there was a lot of stress on me to try to get the thing done. I didn't want to drive to New York City and then drive back from New York City. Come on. So that was
that's so baller, dude.
The check ride was such a non-issue in the grand scheme of things, but it was just this like overwhelming sense of, got it, we're done. Next phase, let's go. Let's spend some money on $100 hamburgers.
So how long did it take you to decide that you wanted to go for your instrument, or had you planned on that being the next step?
I started running into days where I couldn't fly. I kind of knew all along that I wanted to get my instrument rating quickly. I had done a significant amount of flying with Max. Because Max lives down in New York, and when he had the Cirrus, he had the SR-22. It was a quick flight for him to shoot up here, pick me up, and let's go fly somewhere. So I got to see firsthand the joys of IFR, like having the instrument rating.
Cool.
And the kind of days that it sort of opens up and enables you. There were some cross-country trips that we wanted to do that we couldn't do, that we could have done if I had my instrument rating. So I knew that I wanted to do it fairly quickly. I hadn't intended on doing it as quickly as I did, but I knew that I wanted to do it fairly soon.
Mm-hmm. What was the toughest? So I mean, like obviously the simulator stuff helped, right?
Huge.
So
we talking PPL? Or we talking instrument?
Instrument. Well, I mean both.
Okay.
Like both. I mean it had to have helped in both. I would imagine.
It did.
On the instrument side, what was the biggest thing that the sim flying didn't help with?
Good question. Managing the bumps. There's a certain level of spatial disorientation that comes about when you're flying in IMC. However, I've spent so much time playing video games that I don't get disoriented by that stuff. So I was pretty lucky that wasn't a big deal. But for me, it was the stress of the bumps. How to handle yourself in IMC flight, or how to handle yourself under the hood when you are just getting tossed and you have no other choice but to put that dial in, to fly that course, to fly that approach, and to nail it. Yeah. That's the one thing that you really cannot get in the sim. You need to have somebody basically kicking your chair nonstop and screaming at you and saying, don't screw up, or you might die." To really understand what that is like.
That's it sounds like the Twitch chat.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, a little bit. Brutal.
Do not die.
Yes, please don't die. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. Like the sim prepares you for so much stuff. Like I've had instructors tell me, like I had a chance last year to go to Oshkosh, and I went there as a guest of Keith Smith and Pilot Edge. I went there to help them with some stuff that they were working with.
Cool.
And the thing I was asked to do was to talk to folks in this training center about the merits of flight simulators, like home desktop simulators, in terms of how it can make you more proficient. So, as in they're talking to people, like we're talking to, I talked to a couple CFIs specifically that were like, well, the flight simulator is, and we're talking as a private pilot, not even as an instrument.
Okay.
Well, the simulator can teach you bad habits. And I'm like, well, of course it can teach. I can learn bad habits in the real airplane. Like whatever. But he's like, you over control, you look at the instruments too much, and this and that, and it's like, yes, it can teach you those things, but it also, like, you're focusing on these, again, don't be negative. This is the mantra. You're focusing on these two extraordinarily negative things about the simulator, which I will argue is not a big deal. Mm-hmm. I think a good CFI can teach you how to not have those problems in a couple of lessons or less.
Yeah.
And you're overlooking the fact that the simulator can teach you so much more about situational awareness. It can teach you about checklists. It can teach you about communication. It can teach you about navigation, like engine management, energy management, understanding that the relationship between when I add power, I better adjust that trim or we're going to start climbing, sort of thing, right? And there's the sim can do so much for you, even with the PPL, like even for the PPL stuff. I'm sure you've noticed this, because remember when you started flying, you didn't fly very well. You had some issues with your approaches, Bill.
Yes. Yeah, and I think when we met for the first time, I think I was maybe 2 flights into it.
Yeah.
And
I'm not even talking about the real world stuff. I'm talking about your simulator flying.
Oh, the simulator flying?
Like,
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like you and Chile were going to have a competition to see who could have the highest approach.
Oh yeah, and for sure, if it was like an instrument approach, just forget about it.
Yeah, so I'm going to wager that you've learned a lot of stuff in the sim about energy management.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
and things like that. And so so there's that in the private side, and on the instrument side, obviously there's even more of that, because like the instrument side is all just staring at instruments, which is what you do in the simulator anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So how?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, how often? I mean, because you just recently got your instrument rating. I mean, it's been like a couple of months, if that.
No, it's been like 3 weeks, maybe a month.
Maybe a month.
Yeah, maybe a month.
How many IFR flights have you done so far?
2.
2 of them. Is it really that much different? I mean, do you feel different? Does it feel like a different thing than PPL?
It's it largely depends on where you're at, right? Around here, instrument flying is way easier than VFR flying. Like the 2 flights that I did was an out and back with a friend of mine. We went out for our $100 hamburger. Went to a place down in Southbridge, Massachusetts. It's like 60 miles away. It's very close. But for me to get down there, I have to skirt above 2 Class Deltas and below a Class Bravo airspace. So the Deltas peak out at 2,500 feet, or 2,600 feet, sorry, and the Bravo comes down to 3,000 feet.
Ooh.
So I set myself for 2,800 feet and go right across. I get flight following, so they're watching me. They know that I'm there.
Yeah.
And whatnot, but it kind of sucks. Whereas when I flew at instruments, and I was almost immediately climbed into the Bravo, like just up we go. Okay, sure. You want 5,000? Yeah, we got 5,000 feet for you. Here you go. It's all yours. So it's a lot. And then coming in, it's even easier. Coming in, it's like I don't have to worry about the airspace. They're going to descend me when they want to descend me. So I find instrument flying to be significantly easier. Now, sometimes VFR is nice because I just don't want to talk to anybody. Like I did a night flight a couple of weeks ago, and I just did VFR, didn't talk to a person, aside from the tower controllers. And that was also peaceful in its own way, but it's also a little nerve-wracking because it's like it's night. If I lose my engine, well, nobody knows I'm here. I don't know, whatever.
So are you, as a result of that, are you going to be flying IFR predominantly?
Yeah. Yeah,
just kind of like default.
It's going to depend on where I go and what I'm doing. I did a flight a couple weeks ago down to the Cape, and I stopped on the way to pick up a friend of mine, and it didn't make sense to do that flight IFR, largely because they would have tried to send me out over the ocean, and I don't have any interest in flying over Massachusetts Bay in the middle of January when it's like 4 degrees outside.
Yeah.
So in that case, like VFR is sort of the preferred way. But like this summer, when we get to the point to where, I want to climb above the turbulence layer, like I want to get above those big puffy clouds, like that's going to be so much easier to do IFR as opposed to like VFR trying to pick my way up there. Can I find a hole? Then can I find a hole to get back down? Like, I don't want to deal with any of that.
Yeah.
Let me just go IFR. Let me get it done. Let me get out there.
So how do you have like a plan or an ideal plan of how often you want to fly and what you want to do? I mean, have you and your wife kind of talked about how often you're going to be flying and where you're going to go? Do you have any like trips planned?
We do have trips planned, yes. So I have a couple of big overnights. I'll talk about those in a second. But I do have a couple of trips, like overnights and longer flights planned. I want to try to get my wife and my daughter up at some point. Like my wife and I are supposed to go up on Sunday if the weather's good. And I'll try to get my daughter up as soon as like it's not freezing cold outside and she's not going to cry her brains out because she's cold.
Did you get her little headphones, like the little baby, like?
Yeah.
Oh yes, that's so cute.
Oh yeah, they're sitting in one of the closets back here. It's pretty adorable. We haven't had a chance to put them on her yet, but it's pretty good looking. So yeah, we have. There's a certain amount of money that I'm able to set aside every month to fly, and sometimes I can flex that a little bit, and sometimes I sort of need to rein that back in. Once the summertime rolls around, it's my target is like 5 to 6 hours a month. Sometimes it's going to be more, and sometimes it's going to be a little bit less. It just kind of depends. So, we've got an idea, and I've got some like places where I want to take the 2 of us to go. Some places where I'd love to take the 3 of us and go. It just kind of depends on like what our schedules end up looking like.
I love it. Okay, so what is next, Ty? What's the future of everything that you're doing? Where do you hope this is going? Where do you think it's going, if those are different?
That's a weird question. So from the content side of things, when we think about like Twitch and YouTube, I don't really know. I'm happy with the community that's building up. I'm happy with the people that I've met. I love going to Expo and just meeting a ton of people. I don't know that I have any like huge mega plans for the Twitch side of things. There's always things that I'm thinking about in the back of my head for YouTube. I'm like, man, like it'd be kind of cool to do these kinds of videos. Like at one point last year, I was thinking, okay, what if we did like a series where we flew into a field and we showed that, and then we showed alongside that flying into the field in the sim with orthophoto scenery, and how cool would that be? But then I started thinking about the logistics of doing that. I'm like, man, that's going to be a lot of work. I don't know if I have time for that. On the flying side of things, however, and this is where we sort of will probably circle back into the content side.
Yeah.
I intend to get my commercial pilot's license probably not in 2019 but 2020. I then intend to immediately go on and get my flight instructor rating and my flight instructor instrument rating.
So you're going for CFII, man. That's freaking awesome.
Yes. So the sort of 2 to 3 year plan is that if we have this conversation again in February of 2022, let's say,
that'll be episodes
at least episodes 7 or 8.
Yeah, 7 episodes. Yeah, 7 or 8.
By then you will have had all of the people on Twitch on, and you're like, well, I don't know who to talk to.
Yeah, no one left.
So I want to get my CFII, and the reason why I want to do that is because you have, people talk about the pilot shortage. Like there's a pilot shortage and this and that. I'm like, yeah, legitimately there is a bit of a pilot shortage, right? More so than a pilot shortage is it becoming an instructor shortage, because all of your flight instructors are people that are they get their instructor rating because that's an easy way to get to 1,500 hours. Like, it's an easy way to build the hours up. And I personally have no interest, for many reasons, in flying commercial airliners. Like, it's not my thing.
Yeah.
We talked about this. I want to go cool places, and
Yeah.
commercial airliners don't go anywhere cool, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
At least not the kind of, like, not working those kind of jobs.
Right.
So, however, when you think about the fact that there's going to be an instructor shortage coming up, like, right now, I could not afford to become a flight instructor. However, I am betting that in a few years, as you see more and more instructors go into airlines because they're being pulled in there because the airlines are starting to pay better, you're going to find flight instructors at some point are going to start making actual money, like a real wage. And I'm hedging sort of that there might be an opportunity to jump in and start instructing and actually being able to make a livable wage at the same time. And then combine that with the YouTube stuff, and combine that with the, like, having those ratings and whatnot sort of gives me more credibility as a broadcaster talking about fake planes. When I can be like, yeah, here's the thing in the fake plane, and this is why it's legit.
Cool. So, I mean, like, I'm sure you follow Jason Miller, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of like him, where he's a CFI. He's not going commercial. He's built up this community of teaching.
Yep. Exactly. That's exactly, like, that's sort of. We talked about influencers before. Like, I don't know that I would consider them to be an influencer of me. I don't know that I necessarily like the style of kind of what he's doing and some of those guys, but totally along the same sort of lines.
Okay.
Being able to create content around that and whatnot. And like, specifically, I would like to explore the ideas of how can we marry flight simulation with training? How do we marry it with primary training? How do we marry it with an instrument training? And is it possible to put together a syllabus where we can have those two become a thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, that's sort of what the future, I think, holds for me. And then obviously it all depends on what ends up happening, but
that's a good plan, though, man. I love it. I mean, if anyone can do it, you can. I mean, you're so personable. The stream is so much fun. It's and I think this is why people enjoy watching your stream so much, because you're someone who you can immediately feel like you're best friends with. You have that personality where, and there's part of it is a conscious decision, like you said, like you take the swearing out of it, you take the negativity out of it. But I think it's beyond that, where you just have you have like resting, inviting face.
That's a new one. My wife, I would tell my wife that one.
Yeah.
She's going to say, you're full of crap.
No,
she's going to say, you've never seen him at 6:30 in the morning when he wakes up after one of these streams.
It's true, though. I mean, it's just a nice thing. I mean, I'm able to catch you at the end of my workday on a Friday, right. And it's just at 4:00 my time. It's just like nice. It's like it's Friday, the weekend's starting. Ty is just we're saying hi to everybody, and it's people that I recognize too that you're saying hi to. So it's
right.
It's kind of like we're all just hanging out, having a beer, even if we're not having a beer with you, and.
Newegg doesn't have happy hour on Fridays?
I wish, man.
You need to find a new company.
I know, I really do. I need the whiskey in the drawer. I need to.
Ooh, we got some stories about that.
Yeah, I need to get on that program. But
definitely worked for a company one time where I had desk gin. They had desk whiskey. I had desk gin.
Oh, desk gin. Oh, that'd be so nice. Oh, neat. Little gin neats. Yes.
Yeah. Now we're talking.
But to imagine you being in a CFI scenario, I mean, I envy whoever your future students are, because it's gonna be a great time learning, because you're very instructional in nature and very inviting. So that's awesome. You would be a fantastic addition to our future pilots.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know. I try not to think about it too much. Like, you get to the point, like, it's when we go to these expos and these events and whatnot, it's like, I'm just a dude. Like,
yeah,
it's funny that you say I'm so inviting and this and that, because I'm the most textbook introvert you've ever met. Like, tonight I'm thinking, I don't know if I have the energy for this tonight. But you put a camera in front of them, like, whatever. Let's
You
have
know
fun.
what? I think because I'm the same way. Like I'm a
Mhm.
introvert as well. Like I love my alone time, but yeah,
Mhm.
you're right. There's something about putting yourself in a position
Yep.
to be in front of people and on a camera or whatever. Whether anyone watches or not, it doesn't matter. But there is, it's
Right.
definitely a weird dichotomy of who you think you really are and then who you become when the
Right.
little red light is on.
Well, and that's another, like, that's a whole other discussion too. Like, people think they know who you are, but it's like they know the things that I let them know.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's things in life where it's like, all right, we're not gonna talk about that on stream. Like, there's
Yeah.
certain personal things where it's like, there's no need for people to know that.
Yeah.
But you try to make this, like, you try to make this larger than life personality when you can, and I remember, and I'm taking up a lot of your time now, but I was
Not at
talking to
all.
somebody. I don't remember what it was. It was somebody years ago. Actually, you know what? We talked about this too. I think in the panel, somebody asked about this, and it's like, well, what do you do when, like, how do you make a persona out of yourself, right? How do you make a persona out of yourself? And it's like, everybody has something that is interesting about them. Everybody has this personality trait that other people that like you say, you know what, that makes you an interesting person. And it's about finding those and exaggerating them. I'm a handsy speaker. Like, I try not to do it on stream too much, but I'm sitting here like I'm dancing with my hands, and I keep using them out here, and you can't see what they're doing. Like, you can, because you can see them in the corner right now. Get some jazz hands going. But like, you find those traits, and you just sort of, you want to embellish on those and just have a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of fun with it. And
Yeah.
that's where you sort of, like, you have the not quite Dr. Disrespect level of stream persona, but you still get this sort of like larger than life, appearance of yourself.
Dr. Disrespect's old jersey right there.
Is it?
We had the same
no
number.
kidding.
Yeah. Guy Beam and I shared the same
That's right,
number.
I
Yeah.
forgot you played ball.
Yeah. So number 20
That's
was his
Ryan.
number. Dude, Dr. Disrespect is not a character. That is Guy Beam.
Oh, is it? Interesting. Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
The dude is
he puts
nuts.
on a good character.
Yeah, the dude is a nut.
He has to be. He has to be.
We're all nuts. It's just to what degree.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Well, Ty, thank you so much for joining me on this. I really appreciate it. You're fantastic guy. This kind of the figurehead of this community, and
I don't know about that.
the growth that you've had in the last. I mean, frankly, in the last 6 months, but for sure in the last couple of years is very, very well deserved. And congratulations on the daughter, the instrument rating, the success. You absolutely deserve it.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on, dude. I know we kind of been talking about this for a few weeks, but I love the idea of a podcast focused on, like, having a rotating guest. I love podcasts in general, so
Yeah, me
think
too.
it's
I do too.
Cool thing you're doing.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm a huge podcast junkie too, and but more importantly, I mean, it's very selfish because I watch you, I watch Valduz,
Mm-hmm.
I watch John Fly, I watch a lot of these streamers, and like you said, there's a lot to people that they don't show on the stream.
Yeah.
And where they're willing to talk about some of that stuff, I want to find out more about you as a person, and thank you for being so open and sharing. Thank you for sharing so much about yourself, and I would like to do a part 2 with you because I mean I think there's a lot more that we can talk about.
Absolutely.
And I would love to have a part 2 with
do
you
it.
sometime.
We'll do it sometime after I do some more instrument flying, assuming I haven't killed myself.
Yeah, don't do that.
We'll have some more interesting things to talk about in a few months. I promise.
I love it. Well, we definitely have to make a plan of it. So
Sounds good. Thank
Ty,
you again, man.
Thank you, Ty, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Toodles.
Toodles.